Okay, hello YouTube. Today I'm going to be replacing the front wheel bearings. My 2014 Ram 1500. That's the Black Express package there. Nothing special to it at all. Should be exactly the same on pretty much every Ram. It's 2009 plus, but we can only speak for this one. There's my trusty partner in crime, ready to work. So I should mention, if you don't have an impact gun, don't jack your truck up first. Break all these nuts loose with a nice breaker bar. Get them loose, then jack up the truck and take your tire off. Otherwise, you're gonna have the tire spinning on you when you're cranking on it. You don't have to worry about it with one of these babies. If you're doing a lot of DIY on your car, buy one. It's worth the investment. It'll save you a lot of time. Keep all your stuff in a safe spot. I don't want to lose bolts. Or nuts, I should say, in this case. Oh, baby. Off she comes. You're going to use this to sit on. I don't have a stove here. It gets tiring. So, easy solution here. Take a screwdriver. Ram it in the fins of your brake rotor. Want to get it way in. If you've got a nice big screwdriver, it's bigger the better, but that one won't fit, so use a decent sized little guy here. Throw the breaker bar on. Get it on there good. Give it a little off. And off she comes. Really not too bad now that I got it loosened up. Impact can help us out. Okay, so next thing's next. You got two bolts here for your brake caliper holding it on. One up top, the second one down bottom. Undo those two and we'll get our caliper out of the way and just hang it off here. This way your lines won't get all buggered up, all twisted on you. That's what you want. Okay, so I got the caliper off. That took a, 13 mil. Just two little bolts. Take them off the back side where I showed you there. Next thing, you're gonna wanna slide these brake pads out. Now I've just done my pads recently, so they're not going to be too bad, but yours may be a little more rusted in there. Clean up those grooves when you put this back with that wire brush. Makes a big difference. I'm going to do the same to the back side. Should come out relatively easy. If it doesn't, get yourself some brake grease. Yes, brake grease, not regular grease. Just give it a little touch on either side of those grooves there. On these end bits, you can see I had a little bit there anyway. It's kind of dirtied up now, but you want these things to slide freely, otherwise you're going to get squeaking, brake chatter, uneven wear, all kinds of crap. Okay, so next we got these big bad boys. A little, we'll go to standard. Yeah, 21 mil. That'll get this top guy and this bottom guy. Get them both off. That's going to take off your caliper holder and then the rotor. And if you just done your brakes like me not too long ago, the rotor will slip off real easy. I haven't hit this once with anything. If not, well, you can check out my video on doing my wife's Audi. I got a neat little trick for popping these off. Anyway, I'm going to pop those two off with my 21 mil here, and we'll get to the next step. Okay, done and done. Everything's free and clear. You can maybe hear grinding around in there. It's not terrible to the point that there's a lot of movement in it or anything like that you'd notice, but I take care of my truck and I notice when sounds start to happen. So I could just feel it in the steering wheel. I could hear it coming a couple of weeks ago. So we got to get basically this bolt. There's going to be 3 of them on the back side here. Not going to be the easiest to get to. 1, there's 2, and the other guy on the other side. Oh, hard to get you in there. It's going to be down here. Number 3. Can you see it? Not really. Only just barely. That's what you're seeing in the corner there. Yeah. So our next thing is get those bolts out, like I said, and this bad boy should be popping right out for us. We get a new one on there, slap her all back together. Of course, we gotta detach this wire here, put our new sensor on, and we'll be good to go. So I'm gonna get working on those bolts. I'll let you know what size it is and we'll go from there. So before I even go ahead and back these out, I'm just hitting them with a little bit of a lubricant, WD-40 or this crap, whatever you got at home. It's gonna help you out. Don't bother even trying to turn them until you've hit this, because you're just going to be pulling crud back into the threads there. It's going to make it harder for you to get it off. Set this on, give it a minute, and then you can go ahead and crank on them on the back side with your breaker bar. Okay, so I got my steering knuckle cocked way over to the one side here and turned to the driver's side as much as I could. Got a little extension bar on there with my 18mm socket. Breaker bar. It took a little bit of strength to get that broke, but now that I got it going, it seems to be coming out okay. I also used my soft mallet just to pound back that CV shaft a little bit, give us a little more room to get the tool in there. Otherwise it's very tight with the 4-wheel drive. So I'm going to do the same to the top one there, and then I'm going to crank the wheel over to the other side, over to the passenger side there, and get the one on the bottom. It'll be easier to access from the back side. I'll show you. Alright, now that the bolts are out, give it a couple whacks over here, a couple whacks on the other side. It's harder obviously to get it on this angle. You got a lot more swing over here. So pretty much use this as your main force, this one just to tap it straight, and you'll see after a whole bunch of whacks and messing up and hitting your heat shield a couple times, you'll start to get it out. A lot easier with 2 hands, but I think you're getting the idea. Out she comes. Now, there's nothing really else securing it other than things are a little tight here. I'm going to throw some grease on the spindle there when we put her back together. And yeah, I'm just going to ease that off. I'm going to use 2 hands for it, but it should come off pretty easy. Maybe a little bit of love from the hammer. Okay, we also want to remove your wire for the ABS sensor there, or speed sensor. This little connection here is what it's on the inside. You gotta get up in there. Get up in there and undo that clip right there. Then your new one should just slide right in. So the other one will be retained. The little clip going over top of this guy. You can use your screwdriver, pry it up, and undo the other clip, and it should slide right out. And then we'll slide this one in its place, and it looks exactly the same as factory. Same kind of little nubbins here that'll plug in and keep all your wires in good spot. So I'm going to go ahead and undo that and put the new one in. Before I go ahead and put it in, I'm just going to clean up this face here again with my wire brush as best I can. A little bit of lubrication goes a long way on this in case you got to do the repair in the future. Do not lubricate the threads on your axle nut here, or any nut for that matter. It's going to allow it to come undone with vibration, and that's a no-no, especially on these major parts. So go ahead and clean that up. If you put a little dab of oil, or a little dab of grease around here, rather, not oil, it'll go a long way just to make sure that this doesn't happen again as soon anyway. Of course, rust is inevitable, but we do what we can to mitigate it. Anyway, I'm going to unplug that wire and clean this surface up. Slap our new bearing in there. Okay, new hub is in. Now I found that I basically had to get this piece pushed back, so that's part of your CV shaft there. I had to push that back. I used my soft hammer here to get it back in place on my stubby 18 millimeter with the 1/4 inch drive there, just to get things started, to get back in there, because there's very little space to get your tool in when you got the 4-wheel drive. Get these bolts started, ease them in. Don't crank one down all the way. Ease them in one at a time, little by little. Work your way around in a circle. It's kind of hard to do a cross pattern with these ones here, but work your way around. Get it to draw in and to be seated, and then you can crank them down one at a time, bring it up to your torque spec. I believe it's 35 foot-pounds. You better check with the manufacturer. Or you can do the old click, good enough for me kind of thing. So if you don't have a torque wrench, go ahead and just gas, but I'm going to torque these down to 35, I believe it is. I'm just going to double check before I put everything back together. And then we're going to go ahead, throw the rotor on, throw the caliper holder, the pads, and then of course finally the caliper and the wheel back on this side. And then I'll tackle the other side, which is going to be exactly the same. Oh yeah, of course, don't want to forget, before the wheel we're going to do the reverse of what we did in the first place and torque down the nut on this bad boy here. Okay, so I just torqued down this axle nut here down to 185. That's what you want, 185 foot-pounds. I also wanted to point out a quick little trick, might help you just in getting the rotor back on and trying to get your caliper and pads and everything resituated here. It helps if you get an oversized nut, put it on here, and then use one of your lug nuts to just secure the rotor right tight against everything there. You're not going to have any movement in it. Just makes it easier to get everything aligned. You can use your brake parts cleaner, clean up the rotor, and this way you're not going to have any grease, any fingerprints, any crud stuck to your rotor and affecting your brake quality. Just nice little handy kind of help me out that you can do. Just again, oversized nut and your lug nut, and that'll hold it right in place until you get everything else in place. Once you got your caliper on here, the pads are basically going to keep this in place until you get your wheel back on, but without the factory retainers, this thing wants to slip all over the place. Okay, just to show you a little comparison here of why we're replacing these bad boys. Let me just prop that up. Here's the new one. You can see it's stiff and quiet. That's how you want it to be. Here's the old one. Aside from looking shitty, here's one of them. The other one's pretty nice. This one's a little stiffer. This is the driver's side. Now it doesn't sound half as bad. The passenger was a lot worse. And from my experience, the passenger side tends to go a little quicker than the driver's side, and I think that just has to do with the fact that you tend to, at least here, we're making left-hand turns at speed and right-hand turns tend to be slowed down a fair bit. So just that difference in speed, you put a lot more force onto the passenger side of the vehicle, especially if you're towing, when you're braking into a left-hand turn. that passenger side is taking a lot of weight. So it tends to wear out a little quicker than the driver's side. And that's just my experience. If you're ripping around right-hand corners, you might find the opposite.